Alright, what's going on everyone? My name is Attorney AJ Elica at nandito ngayon tayo sa unang series ng ating mga lectures on the different law subjects na gusto ko sanang i-discuss for the benefit of my students, no? I'm starting this page as an educational channel para sa mga students of the law, most especially my students, para matulungan sila sa pag-aaral nila. Now, if it helps you, if you're a law student, or maybe you're a bar reviewee, no, a bar candidate, or a lawyer na may want to catch up on some of the topics, some of the fundamentals that you may want to reprise dahil siguro may kinalaman sa kaso mo, or gusto mo lang talagang maalala ulit, then this may be the channel for you. Right, so again, my name is Attorney AJ Elica, and today we'll be talking about obligations and contracts. Okay, so obligations and contracts is a bar subject under civil law, no? And it is one of the most fundamental subjects as it relates to basically each and every transaction that people may have, may they be natural persons or juridical persons, no, with each other. Okay, and so balikan natin, no, how does the civil code define an obligation? Under article 1156 of the civil code, sinasabi doon that an obligation is a juridical necessity to give, to do, or not to do, no? Pero according to some commentaries, this is very insufficient as it does not really portray or illustrate the interplay between the different elements of an obligation. Sinasabi lang merong juridical necessity to give, magbigay, gumawa, or hindi gumawa ang isang tao. Pero sinong tao yon? At para kanino? At ano yung dapat niyang gawin? 'Di ba? So, yung kakulangan na yun led many commentators, many authorities in civil law to more appropriately adopt the definition coined by Arias Ramos, no? And in one case, the great civilist, former Justice JBL Reyes even cited the definition given by Arias Ramos. According to Arias Ramos, an obligation is a juridical relation whereby a person called a creditor may demand from another, who is the debtor, the observance of a determinative conduct. And in the case of breach, may demand satisfaction from the assets of the latter. So makikita nyo doon, no, yung interplay ng different elements within an obligation. So nandun si active subject, who is the creditor. Siya yung pwedeng mag-demand, kaya siya active. Siya yung hihingi. Siya yung magsasabi, oy, ibigay mo na sa akin yan. Kaya siya active, no? Yung isa, passive, yung makakatanggap ng demand, yung makakatanggap ng paghingi. Siya yung debtor, siya yung may utang, o siya yung may obligasyon to give or to do or not to do something. Okay? So let's say in a contract of loan, no, wherein Jose borrowed 1 million pesos from Pedro. Pedro is the active subject dahil siya ang may right to demand the 1 million peso obligation from Pedro. Diba? So pwede niyang hingin. Si Pedro in this case would be the passive subject, or the debtor, or sometimes called also as the obligor. Okay? Ngayon, dalawa lang yon, dalawang element pa lang yun ng obligation. We also talk about the object or yung prestation, yung subject matter ng obligation. Ano ba tong i-give? Ano ba tong gagawin? Or what should the debtor do? Or what should the debtor not do? Yun yung prestation or yun yung object in its most simplest sense, no? And we call that, again, let me repeat, as the prestation. Okay, so in that case, kanina kay Jose at kay Pedro, ano yung prestation? The 1 million pesos na utang. Okay? Now, the contract of loan, yung pagkakautang, is what we call as the vinculum juris or the legal tie. Paano sila nagre-relate sa isa't isa? Ano ba ang relationship nila as per the obligation? Ano ang relationship ni creditor kay debtor as it relates to the prestation? Yun yung vinculum juris, no? Now, before we go to the vinculum juris, let me emphasize the last part of Arias Ramos's definition. Ang sabi ni Arias Ramos, no, the creditor may demand satisfaction from the assets in case of breach. So, kunwari hindi tumupad si debtor sa obligasyon niya to give, to do, or not to do. Ano ngayon ang pwedeng gawin ni creditor? In its simplest sense, again, made simple, no? Arias Ramos made it simple. The creditor may demand satisfaction from the assets of the debtor. Okay? You will find this kung saan to nakaangkla, no? Sa Article 1170 of the Civil Code, wherein if the debtor in the performance of his obligation may be guilty of negligence, delay, fraud, or breach, as in the debtor is in contravention to the tenor of the obligation, then the creditor may ask from satisfaction from the assets of the debtor. Okay? So again, let me repeat. Active subject, yung manghihingi, creditor. Passive subject, yung hihingan, siya yung debtor. Ano yung hinihingi? Yun yung prestation. In an utang, yung utang. Ano ngayon yung vinculum juris or legal tie nila? Yung pagkakautang. And the vinculum juris finds itself, no, being anchored on the 5 sources of obligations under Article 1157. Paano ba nagkakaroon ng relasyon tong mga tao na to as debtor and creditors of each other? Di ba? The first one is kapag nag-create ang obligation based on law. Batas mismo ang nagke-create ng obligation. Another one is when the parties agree to a contract based on their meeting of the minds, no? Nag-agree sila on a certain thing that they should give and or receive a certain service or a certain thing, then they create the vinculum juris via contract. Okay? Now technically, authorities would say that there are only 2 sources of obligations, either law or contract. Sir, hindi naman yun yung nakalagay sa 1157. 1157 provides 5 sources of obligations. Now, I believe that the framers of the Civil Code made it so to properly categorize and find the and make it easier for the reader, no, to source out from which law should he or she anchor his obligation para mahanap niya kung saan ang precepts or foundations nitong relasyon nating dalawa. Kaya nagdagdag sila doon ng 3 pa. No, meron pang 3 doon sa 1157. So again, there is law, there is contract, there is quasi-contract, no? Yun yung bago, quasi-contract. Then there is delic, and there is quasi-delic. Now, yung sa quasi-contract naman, walang kontrata. Pero based on voluntary unilateral acts, no, of the parties, there is created a contract-like relationship. Kaya nga siya quasi-contract. Wala man talaga silang totoong kontrata, there is a contract-like relationship. Why? It is to avoid situations of solutio indebiti. No? May unjust enrichment sa isang partido. Kahit wala naman siyang right para mag-increase yung wealth niya, biglang tumataas, no, yung wealth niya or na-enrich siya. It is unjust. Example, pinaka-basic, bumili ka sa yung pinakamalapit na convenience store, no? Ang binili mo ay 100 pesos worth of snacks and drinks. Nagbayad ka ng 500 pesos. Ordinarily, no, naturally and logically, ang dapat mong sukli dun sa 500 pesos mo is 400 pesos for that 100 pesos set of snacks and drinks. Pero ang binigay sa yung sukli ay 1,000 pesos. May right ka ba doon sa extrang 600? Wala. Unjust yung pagkakayaman mo, no? In a loose sense, yumayaman ka ng 600 pesos doon sa sobrang sukli na yon. Dahil doon, pinagpapalagay na ng batas na merong contract-like o parang kontratang relasyon between yung nakatanggap ng sobra at yung nagbigay ng sobra. Nagkamali siya sa pagbibigay niya ng sobra. Okay? Nagkamali siya. Kasi kung gusto niyang magbigay ng sobra, donasyon yon, kontrata yon. Pero kung hindi yun gusto, kundi pagkakamali lang, then there is quasi-contract. There is a quasi-contract relationship there. At dahil doon, meron na ngayong obligasyon yung nakatanggap ng sobra para isauli pabalik yung sobra. Okay? So that is solutio indebiti. This also applies on cases of negotiorum gestio. Okay? Which loosely translates to management of affairs. Dito naman sa Tagalog, ma-appreciate natin to pag na-appreciate natin yung konsepto ng pagpapaluwal o pag-aabono, no? So kung kunwari kanina dun sa convenience store, di ba? Sa convenience store, let's say yung kahera nag-CR, no? Nag-CR yung kahera. Ikaw naman na dati kang taga doon sa convenience store, nakita mo ang haba na ng pila. And si kahera hindi bumabalik. So, para tulungan yung convenience store, o let's say sari-sari store pa yan, ikaw muna yung tumao sa kaha. Kaso nakita mo, no, puro buo yung pera nila, walang panukli yung kaha. So ikaw naman ay nagpapaluwal at nag-aabono ng panukli. Okay? Obviously, ang yumayaman doon sa pag-aabono mo ay yung business. Hindi niya kailangan maglabas ng pera, nag-aabono ka eh. Hindi niya kailangan maglabas ng kapital panukli kasi nag-aabono ka. 'Di ba? So unjustly nai-enrich pa din itong business na to. Kaya ang sinasabi ng batas, meron dapat ditong quasi-contract relationship kung saan may obligasyon si in this case yung convenience store to return kung ano man ang expenses na ginastos mo sa management ng affairs nila. No? That is a very simple way of looking at negosyorum gestio. Okay? There is also delic as an obligation, as a source of obligation. Delic basically means maleficio, or in common parlance, crime, krimen. Okay? At makikita nyo, malalaman nyo sa inyong criminal law, no? Sa inyong criminal law 1 to be more specific, under Article 100 of the Revised Penal Code, every person criminally liable is also civilly liable. Meaning, hindi ka lang liable para sa krimeng ginawa mo, kundi may nakaakibat na danyos at liabilidad na sibil doon sa ginawa mong krimen. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo, kapag ang isang tao ay na-adjudge na guilty for a crime, siya ay pinapatawan din ng kaukulang parusa para magbayad ng danyos. Dahil kailangan niyang either to repair or ayusin kung ano yung nasira niya, to restitute, no? Or to return kung ano yung nawala niya or ninakaw niya, or to indemnify kung ano yung na-damage niya. Okay? So, kailangan niyang magbayad pa rin ng danyos. Now, take note, no, in your criminal procedure as well as your provisions on human relations, there are actions known as independent civil actions. Different from the civil liability arising from the crime itself under Article 100, but gives to the victim, no, the right to file an independent civil action based on the criminal act. You will find this on your articles 32 to 35 of your civil code, no, wherein there may have been a breach of the fundamental rights or the constitutional rights of the accused, of the victim, or that there was physical injury, fraud, or theft in the commission of the crime, or that there is a transaction separate and distinct which may give rise to a civil obligation different from the actual crime. Okay? So, tatandaan nyo po yun, yung konsepto ng independent civil actions under your provisions on human relations, no? At napag-uusapan yan sa persons and family relations. Now, the last source of obligation would be your quasi-delicts. Your quasi-delicts. Basically, these are liabilities arising from the negligence of a party, or who we call as a tortfeasor in torts, no? Yung may ginawang kapabayaan. Okay? Now, take note that in quasi-delicts, there should be no prior contractual relationship between the plaintiff, yung humihingi ng kabayaran base sa negligence, at yung nagpabaya or the defendant. Otherwise, dapat contractual ang liability ng nagpabaya, because may contractual relationship sila. Pero kung wala, then culpa Aquiliana may be given due course, no? When the plaintiff files a complaint for damages in court. Okay? Now, tumungo tayo doon sa mga nature, sa mga general principles and sa nature and effects of obligations. Okay? Now, under your law on obligations and contracts, ordinarily the diligence required is what we call as bonum pater familia, or diligence of a good father of a family. In some with some authorities, this is basically called the diligence of a reasonable person, meaning based on the time, the place, the circumstances that arise in the fulfillment of the obligation, you have to give special attention and observe all those steps necessary as what a reasonable person would do in that situation. Kung umuulan, takpan. 'Di ba? Kung mainit ulit, takpan at palamigin kung kailangang palamigin. Kung nag-aalaga ka ng hayop, maaraw, painumin mo ng tubig. Because that is what a reasonable person would do. And that is what a good father of a family would do. Following the concept of bonum pater familia, or diligence of a good father of a family. Okay? However, no, under based on either contract or the law, the parties may be expected to observe a higher degree of diligence. An example of this would be your common carriers under your law on transportation, under the Civil Code, wherein common carriers, those who transport goods or persons, no, and make them their services available to the public, di ba? They are required to observe a higher degree of diligence, and we call that as extraordinary diligence. Anong pagkakaiba, sir? Pag extraordinary diligence ka, wala na doon sa humihingi ng danyos ang burden to prove na merong kapabayaan. Ipinagpapalagay na ng batas, merong presumption na dahil may nangyaring danyos, malamang sa malamang meron kang ginawang mali at nagpabaya ka. There is what we call presumption of negligence. Hindi kailangan patunayan ng plaintiff or ng creditor in that situation yung kapabayaan. Nasa sayo para patunayan na inobserve mo lahat ng dapat i-observe para ma-avert or maiwasan yung danyos na pwedeng masuffer ng plaintiff. Kaya yung mga nag-ooperate dyan ng mga common carriage, no, nag-grab ka, nagta-taxi ka, nag-jeep ka, nagta-tricycle ka, may you be the driver or the operator, remember that you have to observe a higher degree of diligence. At pag may nangyari sa pasahero mo, automatic kang ipagpapalagay ng batas na may kapabayaan. Pag hindi mo nasira yung pagpapalagay ng batas na yon, yung presumption of negligence na yon, then your negligence stands and you will be held liable for damages. Okay? So, mag-ingat po, no? Kaya makikita mo, hindi ko maintindihan ko minsan yung mga public transport na makikita mo parang wala silang pakialam doon sa mga pasahero nila. Hindi pa nakakasakay, hindi pa nakakasampay yung paa ng pasahero. Umaandar na, 'di ba? Or makikita mo nagbabanking sila sa kalsada. Hindi nila alam, hindi nila naiintindihan na pag may nangyari sa pasahero nila, they are liable for damages under the contract of common carriage. Diba? May kapabayaan na sila doon at pinagpapalagay ng batas na nagpabaya sila. Okay? Now, tumungo tayo sa konsepto ng fruits. Konsepto ng fruits, hindi tayo pwedeng kasama ang prutas, pero not necessarily prutas ang pinag-uusapan natin dito. Fruits ay pwede nating i-equate sa produkto na inilalabas. No? Ito ay konsepto sa property law na kung saan ang isang bagay ay pwedeng maglabas ng fruit or produkto. Kung animal yan, like baka, kalabaw, aso, pwede siyang manganak. Diba? Pwede siyang manganak. At yung anak niya na yon, yung tuta, no? Or yung maliit na baka, yung calf, as we call it, no? Nung baka or nung kalabaw, ay fruit. Okay? At sabi sa Article 1164 ng Civil Code, the creditor has the right to the fruits of the thing once the obligation to deliver it arises. Sorry. So yun, pag-uusapan natin mamaya. Okay? Pero una, intindihin muna natin, ano ba itong mga fruits? No? Ano ba itong mga sinasabing fruits ni Sir? Under your law on property, it may be natural fruits, which the law defines as spontaneous products of the soil, mga inilabas ng lupa, no? Mga puno, yung mga prutas ng puno, di ba? Pwede yung maging natural fruit, or young of animals, mga anak, or mga iniluwal ng mga hayop. Sabi ko nga kanina, tuta, kuting, sisiw, these are also fruits. And they are considered under our law as natural fruits. We also have industrial fruits. Okay? Industrial fruits. Ang industrial fruits naman ay mga produkto ng lupa after mo siyang i-cultivate or i-develop or ayusin. Okay? So nag-till ka ng lupa, nag-cultivate ka ng lupa, 'di ba? Pag sabi nga ng kasabihan, pag may sinaka, may aanihin. Yung ani na yon, we can consider as industrial fruits. Ano naman po yung huling type of fruit? Ito yung tinatawag nating civil fruits. Civil fruits may be rent, leases on lands, no? Passive income, accrual in money, no? Ito yung mga kumikita na mga bagay. Okay? So, yung bahay mo nandyan lang, pero pinaparenta mo. Yung renta na binabayad sa'yo is actually a fruit. No? It is actually a fruit. At again, bakit natin pinag-uusapan yan? Because sabi sa Article 1164, the creditor has a right to the fruits of the thing once the obligation to deliver it arises. Okay? Excuse. So, ano yung importanteng konsepto dito? Sinasabi dito, kapag may dapat na ibigay sa yung isang bagay base sa isang obligasyon, may it be law or contract, kapag dumating yung oras, no? Ano yung oras na pinag-uusapan natin dito? Kung pure obligation yan, ngayon. Kung conditional obligation yan, pag nangyari yung condition. or kung obligation with a period yan, pag dumating yung oras or araw na pinag-usapan. Kapag dumating yung oras o araw na pinag-usapan na yon, at may kailangan ng ibigay na isang bagay sa iyo, lahat ng mapoproduce na fruits ng bagay na yon ay dapat mapunta din sa iyo. Kasi dapat nasa iyo na yon eh. Example, kung ngayong oras na to, sinabi mo sa kaibigan mo, ibibigay ko sa iyo yung aso kong babae na German Shepherd. Ngayon, meron kayong kontrata. Right now, I will give to you my German Shepherd dog. No? May female German Shepherd dog. Mula sa oras na to, lahat ng bagay na maproduce nung German Shepherd dog na yon, meron ka ng personal right. So, hindi pa na-deliver sa ngayon, no? Kasi gabing-gabi na eh. Let's say, alas 12 na ng gabi. Hindi ma-deliver sa'yo. Eh, mamayang madaling araw, nanganak pala yung German Shepherd na dog. Kanino mapupunta yung tuta? Sa'yo na dapat pinagbigyan ng German Shepherd dog. Dahil dapat nga kanina pa sa'yo, nasa iyo yung tuta na yan. So, lahat ng mapoproduce niya at the time where the obligation to deliver it arises, you have a personal right to it. Now, take note na ang sinasabi ng Article 1164 ay personal right lang. Meaning, ang pwede ko lang habulin, no, para doon sa fruits na yon ay kung sino ang may hawak noon. Personal lang yung karapatan ko. Pwede kong habulin mula sa iyo na dapat magbibigay sa akin ng aso. Hindi ko pwedeng habulin yung iba. 'Di ba? Kasi nasa iyo eh, personal lang. Pero once matanggap ko na yung tuta as well as yung nanay, I have a real right to it. Ano yung real right na yon? Pwede ko na silang protektahan mula sa buong mundo. Lahat ng umaangkin sa kanila, pwede kong i-eject. So kung kunwari may lumapit sa akin, sabi niya, "Oy, yung tuta na yan, binenta na sa akin yan ni Mr. X. Dapat akin yan." Pwede kitang i-eject. I can defend this property from you. Okay? So ganon ang ibig sabihin ng real right. Okay? One of the most important provisions. Take note of Article 1169. Papasimplehin natin. Pag wala pang demand, as a general rule, wala pang delay. Let me repeat. Hindi ko pa hinihingi or hindi ko pa dinedemand, hindi ka pa in delay. Sir, kahit lumagpas yung pinag-usapan na oras, kahit lumagpas yung pinag-usapan na oras. So kung kunwari, ang sinabi mo sa kaibigan mo, "Pre, pautang ako ng 1 million pesos, babayaran ko on March 1, 2025. Lumagpas yung March 1, 2025, hindi ka pa nakakabayad. Are you in delay? The answer is no. Why? Wala pang paghingi, wala pang demand. Sir, bakit kailangan pa yung demand? Nag-uusap na kayo. Ipinagpapalagay ng batas, no, na kahit lumagpas yung oras kung saan pinag-usapan nyo na dapat ibigay yung isang bagay o dapat gawin yung isang bagay, the mere fact na wala pang demand, baka ang ibig sabihin noon ay binibigyan ka pa ng chance ng creditor mo na mag-ipon or make good on your obligation. Example, 1 million pesos ang utang. Hindi ko muna sisingilin ngayon kahit March 1 na. Baka nag-iipon pa siya eh. Sa sweldo na niya. Sa March 15 ko na sesend yung demand. Kasi alam kong bayad siya sa araw na yon. Diba? So doon pa lang magkakaroon ng delay. Okay? Now, paano ginagawa ang demand? Paano ka hihingi officially, legally? Either you do it extrajudicially or judicially. Extrajudicially, you ask for it. And that is what we do when we send out demand letters. You put the debtor on delay by actual demand through the sending of demand letters. Not actual delay rather, but legal delay. Or by judicial demand. Sir, paano yung judicial demand? You file the complaint in court. Pag nag-file ka ng complaint in court, malamang sa malamang, ibig sabihin, hinihingi mo na yung compliance ng obligation. Hindi naman pwedeng nag-file ka sa court tapos sabi, hindi, okay lang, wag judge, wag mong hingin. Anong ginawa mo? Bakit ka pa nag-file? Pinagloloko mo lang kami. Diba? So kapag nag-file ka ng complaint sa court, ibig sabihin, hinihingi mo na, dinedemand mo na yung compliance with the obligation. Now, under 1169, there are exceptions for the need for the need for demand to be done before the debtor may be considered in delay. Under 1169, hindi mo na kailangang mag-demand para maging in delay si debtor on strictly 4 instances. The first one is kapag sinabi ng batas, hindi mo na kailangan mag-demand. Nakalagay, no demand necessary. Simple. Number 2, kapag nakalagay sa contract, hindi mo na kailangan mag-demand. Simple lang din. Nakalagay sa contract, payment should be made on March 1, 2025 without further need of demand. Eh di hindi ko na kailangan mag-demand. In delay ka pagdating ng March 1, 2025. Number 3 is what we call as time is of the essence obligations. No? Time was a controlling motive in the agreement for the contracting of the obligation. Hindi ko papasukin yung obligasyon na yan kung hindi time ang importanteng factor. Okay? Example. Yung classic example natin, no, sa law school. Wedding dress. Etong araw na to yung kasal ko. December 18, 2024. Sabihin na natin. December 18, 2024, yun yung araw ng kasal ko. Dapat by then, tapos na yung wedding dress. Aanhin ko pa yan pagkatapos ng December 18, 2024. Wala na. So, hindi ko na kailangang sabihin, no? Pagdating ng December 19, magde-demand pa ako. Uy, bigay mo na sa akin yung wedding dress. Aanhin ko yan. Magbayad ka na lang. Ibalik mo na lang sa akin yung pera. Diba? There's no more need for demand. Diba? Or, let's say ang obligation mo is, kunwari, party needs ka, taga-set up ka ng balloon or flower sa isang event. Yung event na yon ay January 1, 2025. No? Hindi ka nakapunta. Ang January 1, 2025, di mo na set up yung balloons. Di mo na set up yung bulaklak. Demand there would be in vain, futile, and superfluous. Paanhin ko pa yan? Diba? No more need for demand. Okay? Yun ang very important concept under 1169. Alright. Next, we'll talk about what is a fortuitous event. Okay? A fortuitous event is an event which cannot be foreseen, or even if foreseen, cannot be avoided or is inevitable. That is the definition provided under Article 1174 of the Civil Code. So, hindi ko siya na-anticipate, hindi ko siya ma-anticipate. Or ma-anticipate ko naman siya, hindi ko na siya maiiwasan. And this happens on situations more commonly known as acts of God. No? Catastrophes, volcanic eruption, extreme flooding, strong hurricanes, war may be considered. Question. Is the COVID-19 epidemic a fortuitous event? It is submitted that it is not. What is the fortuitous event in the COVID-19 pandemic would be the mandatory quarantine restrictions. Hindi ka makalabas eh. Yun yung fortuitous event. Hindi ka naman pwedeng kumontra sa gobyerno. So, that would render your compliance or satisfaction with the obligation impossible. Or, the thing to be delivered is lost. Diba? It's either hindi ka makapag-comply or nawala na yung bagay. Nawala na yung bagay na dapat mong ibibigay. Okay? So, kailan hindi mangyayari na kahit merong fortuitous event, liable pa rin si debtor para doon sa obligation? There are three situations. Parang sa Article 1169. Number 1, kapag nakalagay sa batas, liable ka pa rin kahit na may fortuitous event. Nakalagay sa batas. Number 2, pag nakalagay sa kontratang liable ka pa rin para sa fortuitous event. Nakalagay sa kontrata. Number 3 is when the nature of the obligation presupposes an assumption of risk. Iniintindi na ng obligasyon na itong pag-comply mo sa obligation pwedeng may kasamang fortuitous event. Merong kasamang risk. Okay? So, hindi ka ma-excuse from your compliance with the obligation. Another important rule in fortuitous event is that if the thing to be delivered or to be given is generic, meaning not unique, not determinate, if it fortuitous event will not exempt compliance. Bakit? Kasi pwede mo siyang palitan. Example, nabaha yung obligasyon mong 10 kilong dinorado rice. I-deliver mo dapat, no? May dala-dala kang cart, biglang nagkaroon ng flash flood, inanod sa baha. Hindi ka na ba makaka-procure ng panibagong batch ng dinorado rice forever? Kahit kailan? Pwede pa. Capable of being replaced. Hindi unique yung pinag-agrihan yung thing to be delivered. Pero kung ang thing to be delivered is a Lamborghini Gallardo registered under the Philippines via plate number XXX9999. Okay? A black Lamborghini Gallardo with plate number XXX9999. Tapos may obligation ka to give this to Y, no? Your son, because as a promise you said ibibigay mo sa kanya if he passes the bar exams. Pumasya siya ng bar exams. Papunta ka na sa kanya, biglang bumuka ang lupa, nagka-earthquake, kinain yung Lamborghini Gallardo with plate number XXX9999. May your son go to court and still compel the delivery of the thing promised? No more. You are excused via fortuitous event because it is not capable of being replaced, and the fortuitous event happened which rendered you impossible to comply with the obligation. Alright? Now, take note also of the rights of the creditor under Article 1177, wherein it says, it lays out the successive rights of the creditor. Sunod-sunod na rights of the creditor when exacting compliance for the obligation owed. Okay? So, una, exact mo yung payment. Hingin mo yung payment or satisfaction ng claim or for specific performance. Kung obligation to give yan, bigay mo sa akin. Or kung obligation mo magbayad, magbayad ka. Diba? Or kung may obligasyon kang magserbisyo, gawin mo yung serbisyo. Kung hindi mo magawa yon, bayaran mo na lang ako ng property mo. May bahay ka, may lupa ka, yan ang pambayad natin. Walang bahay at lupa pala si debtor. Hala, ano nang gagawin ko? Wala na. Burado na. Hindi po. Under 1177, meron pang mga remedyo si creditor. And the next would be to bring all claims that the debtor may have against other third persons, or what we call as action subrogatoria. Subrogatory rights of the creditor. No? The creditor may substitute and step into the shoes of the debtor as if siya yung debtor. Kasi kung yung debtor, meron pa pala siyang pwedeng singilin sa part na to. May utang sa kanya si A, may utang sa kanya si B, may utang sa kanya si C, na pwede sana niyang pambayad dito sa utang niya. Pwedeng si creditor na ang mag-file ng mga actions na yon based on action subrogatoria. Lastly, let's say wala talaga, walang mahihingi. Baka naman niloloko ka ni debtor. Baka naman ang ginawa niya, nagtago siya ng mga properties by buying properties or transferring properties and naming them in favor of others. Pinangalan sa tito niya, pinangalan sa nanay, sa kung kanino, sa anak, sa kung saan. You may cancel and impugn those transactions. That is what we call action pauliana under Article 1177. It is your right to impugn transactions aimed to defraud the creditor. And the last one, no? Our last topic would be presumption on application of payments under 1176. So under 1176, no, meron doon presumptions na pinagpapalagay ang batas. Okay, may mga pinagpapalagay doon. Kapag ganito ang ginawa mo, ipagpapalagay ko na ganito ang ibig sabihin niya. Yun ang nakalagay sa 1176. Ano tong mga gawa na to? Ano tong mga gawin na to, sir? Sabi sa 1176, kung ang bayad ko sa utang ay in-apply sa principal. Alam mo yung principal, yung mismong pagkakautang, hindi interest, 'di ba? Kung in-apply sa principal, ipagpapalagay ng batas na malamang sa malamang bayad na yung interest. Bakit? Bakit, sir? Kasi kapag nagbayad ka ng utang, uunahing i-apply yun, ibawas doon sa interest, 'di ba? Dahil yun ang ayaw mong lumago, yung interest. Kaya doon siya inuuna. Ngayon, kung nakita ng batas, may pruweba, nakalagay, nagbayad siya para sa principal, hindi sa interest, dahil malamang sa malamang, the presumption now arises that bayad na yung interest. Unless ma-prove ni creditor na, ops, sir, naging mabait lang ako, principal nakalagay, or pagkakamali lang, principal nakalagay, interest talaga yan. If there is evidence to disprove the presumption, then the presumption does not lie. Another presumption that is discussed under Article 1176 is the presumption of payments made on later installments. So, ang sabi sa 1176, kung nagbayad ka para sa isang later installment, this is in relation to time. So, kung kunwari, ang binayaran mo ay para na sa month ng March 2025 na installment. Let's say, nagma-monthly amortization ka ng kotse. Nakita doon sa resibo, sa official receipt, payment for March 2025. Okay? Yung binayad mo ngayong March 2025. Ipagpapalagay ng batas na kung pinapayagan kang magbayad para sa later installment March 2025, malamang bayad ka na for previous ones. Bayad ka na for February, bayad ka na for January 2025, bayad ka na for December 2024, so on, pabalik. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng provisions ng Article 1176. Yun yung second paragraph ng Article 1176. So, hindi kailangan latest, pero later ang nakalagay. So, kung kunwari March 2025 ngayon, at ang binayaran ko, nakalagay sa resibo, no, ay December 2024. Ngayon, nagbayad ako ngayon, December 2024. Ang ipinagpapalagay ng batas, all those prior to December 2024, bayad na. November, October, September, August 2024, so on and so forth. Yun po ang ibig sabihin ng second paragraph ng Article 1176. Alright? So, yun po muna ang i-discuss natin para sa nature and effects of obligations. No? Maraming salamat sa pakikinig at mag-aral kayong mabuti. Bye-bye.